Now I'll be glad to take questions from anybody on any subject you want to ask about. Why don't we start with this gentleman right here?
On the topic of energy, we have a local plant, coal-fired plant in this area.
Plan, you said?
Coal-fired power plant.
You have one now, or you got one planned to be built? I
We
still
have
didn't
150 being planned on the
Does it
books right now.
exist? No, I'm asking. Okay.
Being planned.
Okay.
We all want energy, we all want jobs, but I think we all want clean air and clean water. Talk to us about how we accomplish that.
Okay. Can you all hear the question back there? He said there's a coal-fired power plant that's planned to be built in this area. And he said, you know, everybody wants jobs, everybody wants energy, but he's worried about the clean air and the environment. And I agree with you. I think that's absolutely right. I think there are a group of things that I believe we need to do about this. And I'm going to answer your question very specifically. But let me talk about it in general first, the way I think this fits together. Climate change, global warming, is a very serious issue facing America and the rest of the world. It's actually nearing crisis proportions now. And America has got to take action to deal with it. What I believe we need to do is I think we ought to cap carbon emissions in this country, a national cap. That cap should be ratcheted down every year. We ought to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by at least 80% by the year 2050. That's aggressive, but achievable. And below the cap, we ought to auction off the right to emit any greenhouse gases. That auction will generate $30 to $40 billion, is the estimate. That money, or a big chunk of it, ought to be used to transform the way we use energy in this country, which means we're going to have to invest in wind, solar, cellulose-based biofuels. It means that, at least I believe, we need to develop, probably put at least $1 billion into the development and implementation of carbon sequestration technology, carbon capture technology. We ought to put $1 billion into making sure America's building the most fuel-efficient vehicles on the planet, that they're being built here with union workers, not being built somewhere else. I believe that until and if we have true carbon capture technology available and in place, that we should ban the building of any more of these coal-fired power plants. We need to be moving in the other direction. Okay. We have a serious problem facing America and the world, and that would move us in the wrong direction. So, and by the way, I also think it's going to require all of us to conserve. You know, you can't fix this problem just by innovation. We're going to have to conserve in our homes, drive more fuel-efficient vehicles, conserve in our places of business. We're going to have to do those things to address what I think is a very, very serious issue. And then last but not least, I just want to mention this last thing. We have to create more competition for these big power companies. You know, they make money, the more you think about it, very centralized, they make more money the more electricity you use. We need to decentralize these power grids. We need to allow local communities, grassroots organizations to have ownership of portions of them, to create competition for these big power companies. They'll bring prices down. One last thing, you didn't mention this, but I'm going to mention it. Gas prices. Listen, don't you think it's about time that we figure out whether these big oil companies are gouging the American people? Department investigation over right now. If our laws need to be altered, if they violate the spirit of the law but not the actual language of the law, then we ought to be willing to alter the law. We ought to have to make our states actually enforce their clean air laws against these big refineries that exist. And last but not least, we ought to stop subsidizing oil companies with taxpayer money.